Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I still see those faces every night. A family of 4. Their pictures in the newspaper smiling happily, unaware that that dinner would be their last. I could have saved them, but I didn't. I'm Cal. I was 20 years old at the time. I worked the night shift at a Dollar Tree in Yakima, Washington. The store was on Nob Hill Boulevard, a pretty empty area after 9 p.m. It was an incredibly difficult time for my family. My mom had just been diagnosed with lung cancer. The hospital bills were piling up. The job at Dollar Tree paid $9 an hour, which wasn't much, but I had no other options. I worked the night shift. My job was to stock shelves from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Deb was my manager. She was middle-aged and pretty skinny. Deb had a habit of biting her nails until they bled. I figured it was from work stress. After a month of working there, I noticed something strange. Twice a week, around 2 a.m., a white truck with no company logo would park at the back door. Deb always handled these deliveries by herself. She would tell me to keep working in the front of the store. I asked about the strange deliveries. Deb snapped, "It's just extra stock. The company sends it whenever it's ready." But the boxes had no labels. I didn't question it anymore. My night job and family situation kept me busy enough. One day, I was leaving after my shift when I realized I had left my phone in the stockroom. When I went back, the stockroom door was ajar. Through the crack, I saw Deb working under a dim light. On the table were dozens of packages of deli meat. She was carefully peeling off the old labels, spraying some kind of liquid on each package. Finally, she would carefully wrap them and put on new labels. I was frozen, trying to squint to see what the liquid was. My hand unconsciously touched the door, pushing it wide open. Deb immediately looked up. Our eyes met. "Cal, get in here." Her voice was strangely calm. I walked in. Deb told me to sit down across from her. She continued to label a few more packages before turning to me. "Your mom is seriously sick, right? Hospital bills aren't cheap." I was silent. "I'll give you an extra $500 in cash every week. You just have to forget what you saw tonight. What you're doing is illegal. That chemical could be deadly. Everyone dies in different ways, but if your mom doesn't have money for treatment, she could die right now," Deb said, her voice rising to drown out my objections. She leaned forward. "I have 2 daughters to raise. My husband left last year. What other choice do you think I have?" I looked at the meat packages on the table. A few of them had turned a grayish green, but after she sprayed the liquid, they looked fresh again. I thought about my mom lying in her hospital bed, needing expensive medicine. I clenched my fists, looking down. "I need to think about it. You have until your next shift to decide. If you tell anyone." She didn't finish the sentence, but the look in her eyes made her threat clear. I went home and couldn't sleep. $500 a week could solve a lot of my problems. I convinced myself that it probably wasn't serious enough for anyone to be in danger from eating the meat. At my next shift, I accepted Deb's deal, but a part of me was torn. I started to secretly take pictures whenever Deb was working in the stockroom. I wrote down the dates and times the truck arrived. I kept one of the relabeled meat packages in my freezer at home as evidence. I told myself that one day, when my mom was better, I would report everything with this evidence. A month went by. I was getting paid regularly, and my financial situation and my mom's health were both improving. One day, while watching the afternoon news, I saw a reporter standing in front of a hospital, reporting on a series of food poisoning cases. As of now, 12 people have died. Among them is a family of 4. My heart stopped when I heard the next sentence. The investigation revealed that all of them had eaten a type of deli meat sold at Dollar Tree. I immediately realized it was the meat I had helped Deb put on the shelves. I rushed to the Dollar Tree. The parking lot was filled with police cars and health inspectors' vehicles. Yellow tape was everywhere. I parked far away, watching from my car. An inspector in a white suit walked out of the back door, carrying a plastic bag with a meat sample. I called Deb, but her number was no longer in service. I decided to drive to her house, but when I got there, her neighbors said Deb had moved out the night before. I clenched the steering wheel, filled with anger and helplessness. I drove back to the Dollar Tree and sat silently in my car. I should have been more firm, stuck to my original thoughts. Then maybe I wouldn't be tormenting myself like this now. After a few hours of internal struggle, I decided to talk to the police. But just as I opened the car door, my phone buzzed. A text message from an anonymous number appeared. It was a single picture of me standing in the stockroom, taking money from Deb. I looked around the parking lot, then jumped back into my car and drove straight home. That night, I packed my things and convinced my mom to move to Scranton to live with my aunt, telling her I had found a new job there. We moved the next morning, but the fear still haunts me. I followed the investigation every day and learned that Deb still hadn't been found. My mom and I moved a second time. I changed my phone number 3 times. I deleted all my social media accounts. But I still can't feel at peace. Last month, while walking down the street, I froze when I saw a skinny woman standing on a street corner. She was wearing sunglasses and was covered up, but the way she bit her nails was exactly like Deb. I only looked away for a few seconds, and when I looked back, she was gone. My mom passed away last March. The cancer had spread too quickly, and there was nothing we could do. In her final moments, she held my hand and whispered weakly, "I know you did your best." I broke down in tears because I had hidden everything from her until the very end. Everything started when I was a freshman at the University of Toledo in Ohio. My dorm room was in the oldest building on campus. The room was small like a box, just enough space for a twin bed, a desk, a closet, and a tiny bathroom. This building was on the edge of campus, pretty far from the others, and it was eerily silent at night. As a broke college student, I had to count every penny. Luckily, there was a Dollar Tree about a 5-minute walk from the dorm. That place became my sanctuary. I went there at least 2 or 3 times a week. At first, I only paid attention to the price of the goods, but gradually, I started to notice a male employee. He was about 30 years old, tall and thin, with short brown hair. What was strange was that no matter what area I was in the store, he would appear there. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. When I was standing at the ramen noodle shelf, he was organizing cookies on the shelf next to me. When I moved to the school supplies section, he was there again with a box of merchandise. But what made me start to feel uncomfortable was that he never talked to me. He just watched. His gaze wasn't the normal quick glance people usually give to customers. Every time I went to the checkout counter, I felt like someone was watching me from behind. I tried to tell myself that I was just overthinking it, that maybe he was just a quiet person. But the feeling of unease grew stronger. I tried changing my shopping hours, from late afternoon to early morning, but he was still there. There were times when I purposely walked through different aisles to avoid him, but somehow, he still appeared. One night, I was sitting at my desk, studying for an exam. It was about 11 p.m., and I suddenly heard a soft click from the door. It could have been someone in the next room closing their door. But then the click sounded again, clearer than the last time. It sounded like someone was cautiously twisting the doorknob. I slowly stood up. My room was on the 3rd floor, at the end of the right hallway. There was no reason for anyone to be in this area at this time, unless they were looking for me. Suddenly, 3 slow knocks on the door sounded. It was the kind of knock someone would make to see if anyone was inside. My heart started to pound. I stood and stared at the door without blinking. Curiosity finally won. I slowly went to the door and bent down to look through the peephole. I immediately put my hands over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Standing right outside my door was the employee from Dollar Tree. His face was completely expressionless. He was just standing there, waiting. How did he know I live here? How long has he been following me? A flood of questions rushed into my head. He raised his hand to the doorknob again and tried to twist it gently. I backed away, my hands clenched tightly. I always made sure to lock my door and check it carefully, so he obviously couldn't get in. My phone was on my desk, just a few steps away, but I didn't dare to move. I was afraid he would hear my footsteps and know I was inside. He knocked on the door again, harder this time. I couldn't imagine what horrible thing he would do next. I tried to breathe evenly. I told myself that if I just stayed quiet, he would get bored and leave. A few minutes passed. I was so tense I could barely breathe. I looked through the peephole again. He was still standing there like a statue. Suddenly, from the end of the hallway, on the other side, a door creaked open. Maybe someone was leaving their room to go to the bathroom. Immediately, he turned his head toward the sound. I saw him hesitate for a moment. Then he glanced at my door one last time. After that, he slowly walked away, disappearing from view. I stood leaning against the door for a long time, listening for every small sound. Only when I was sure he was gone did I get my phone and call my friend to tell her everything. The next morning, I went to the dorm office to report the incident to the manager. She listened to my story with a serious expression, carefully writing down every detail. 2 hours later, a security officer called me down. On the computer screen, I could clearly see the man standing outside my door. He had actually tried to twist the doorknob several times. After the security officer checked and confirmed that this person was not a student at the school, I told him that he worked at the Dollar Tree nearby. The security officer said they would send someone to check it out. They advised me to always lock my door carefully and to call them immediately if I saw him again. A week passed. There was no further news from campus security. The man seemed to have vanished, leaving behind only unanswered questions. I never went back to that Dollar Tree again. I'd rather travel farther to buy things than see him again. I started shopping at Walmart, even though it took almost 20 minutes by bus and was more expensive. In the following months, I moved into a dorm room with a friend. It was both to save money and for more safety. Every night, I still check the lock at least 3 times before I go to bed. And every time I hear footsteps in the hallway, my heart beats faster. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't locked the door so carefully that day. I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story.
The clock on the wall said 9 p.m. I glanced out the window of the Dollar Tree. Parking lot was damn near empty. Just my car and a red one parked way out in the corner. I wrapped up the last bit of cleaning for the day and was about to clock out. Next time I looked, it was already 9:45. I muttered a little prayer under my breath. Please, nobody come in now. And of course, right on cue, ding ding, the doorbell went off. I looked up. A white guy walked in, probably mid-40s, shoulder-length brown hair, thick mustache. Didn't even glance at me, just headed straight to the canned food aisle. I gave him a polite hi and went back to sweeping. Couldn't help but chuckle. Guess that's what I get for wishing too hard. Life's got a real sense of humor. The guy was moving slow, sneakers squeaking with every step. I could hear him rustling through the shelves, poking around like he was looking for something specific. I finished up, rolled the cleaning cart behind the counter, checked the register, started counting the drawer, logged today's sales in the book. As I scanned the numbers, that guy popped back into my head. I glanced at the clock, 9:55, looked around the store. He was gone, dead silent. I walked down every aisle. Nothing. No one. Checked the men's restroom, gave the door a polite knock. Anyone in there? Silence. I pushed the door open. Empty. He must have left without buying anything. Guess he didn't find what he wanted. I was busy cleaning, so I didn't catch him leaving. The front door doesn't chime when someone goes out, only when they come in. Yeah, that's probably what happened. At exactly 10 p.m., I wrapped up my shift, locked the main door, shut off the lights in the customer area. Only the ones over the register and by the back exit were still on. Grabbed my bag from the staff locker, time to head out the back door. I started thinking about tomorrow. Day off. Plan, cook something decent, and binge Netflix. The sound of glass shattering rang out from the front of the store. I jumped, let out a scream, spun around. A jar of jam had hit the floor, smashed to pieces. Thick, dark purple strawberry jam oozed everywhere. At the end of the aisle stood the man, just standing there, staring right at me. He was smiling, wide, too wide, yellow teeth. My heart was hammering in my chest. He'd been here the whole time, hiding, somewhere, and I hadn't seen him. "The store's closed. Come back tomorrow," I called out, voice shaking. He didn't say a word, just grabbed a box of cereal and whipped it onto the floor. It exploded on impact, flakes flying everywhere. "You need to leave. Now." I tried to sound firm. Truth was, I was scared out of my damn mind. He picked up a bottle of detergent and hurled it. The cap popped off when it hit. Blue liquid spilled out, mixing with the jam. I backed up toward the counter. My hands were shaking as I reached for the phone. He started walking toward me, still grinning, still laughing. The laugh didn't sound human anymore. I turned and bolted for the back door, fumbled with the key, and dropped it. I bent down to grab the key, hands still trembling. Behind me, I could hear more crashing, stuff falling, glass shattering. I fumbled with the lock, managed to get the back door open, and bolted into the parking lot behind the store. Sprinted to my car, hit the unlock button on the remote, jumped in, slammed the door shut, locked it right away. My fingers shook as I dialed 911. Dollar Tree on Maple Street. There's a man inside. He started wrecking the place after closing. I'm on the night shift. Police will be there in 5 minutes. Are you hurt? No, I said. I'm in my car, out back in the parking lot. From where I sat, I could just make out his shadow moving through the store, thanks to the faint glow from the register lights and the back exit. More glass breaking, more thuds. 10 minutes later, the first cruiser pulled up. No siren, just those red and blue lights spinning in the dark. 2 officers stepped out, hands hovering over their guns. I jumped out of my car and ran over to them. "He's still in there. I don't know what he wants." One of the cops looked at me and gave a short nod. "You know who he is? Name?" "I don't know. He came in right before closing like a normal customer. I thought he'd left." The other officer clicked his radio. "We need backup at the Dollar Tree on Maple. Male suspect. Breaking and entering. Property damage in progress." The 2 officers moved toward the back door. I stayed by my car, watching. A few minutes later, another cruiser pulled in. 3 more cops jumped out and headed straight into the store. "Out! Hands up!" Their voices boomed from inside. Then a scream. Not fear, Rage, raw and feral, like some wild animal backed into a corner. There was a crash. Heavy. Footsteps pounding. Then the sound of metal slamming against metal. I stood outside, frozen, adrenaline buzzing in my veins. Stop! We got him! After 10 long minutes, they brought him out. His hands were cuffed behind his back. His t-shirt was ripped to shreds. But the worst part? He was still smiling. Grinning like the whole thing had been some big joke. As they walked him past me, he turned his head, locked eyes with me. In the harsh glare of the police car's headlights, his face looked off. He mumbled something as they loaded him in, too low to catch. One of the squad cars drove off with the man inside. 2 of the officers stayed behind to take my statement. They walked me back into the store so I could check the damage. It looked like a war zone. Stuff everywhere. Shelves knocked over. Broken glass scattered across the floor like glitter from hell. There was a skull drawn in strawberry jam on the floor near the register. Fear surged up and I started crying. The 2 officers gave me a ride home. It was midnight. 2 days later, I was back on the morning shift. The store was in full restock mode after the whole mess. That's when I got a call from the police with an update on the case. The guy's name was Gray Carter. Used to work here 2 years ago. Got into a legal fight with a customer. Ended up getting fired. Since then, he'd become mentally unstable. Had made threats to a bunch of people. I stood there staring out over the half-stocked shelves, carts, and boxes. This wasn't just some random act of vandalism. It was a symptom of something deeper. A crack in the surface. A reminder of the wounds in this town that never really healed. That was hands down the weirdest trip to the Dollar Tree I've ever had. And believe me, I'm never gonna forget it. It was just a random afternoon. I got off work early, figured I'd swing by the Dollar Tree to grab a couple things. The sky was heavy, clouds all dark and moody like it was about to pour. I hopped out of my car, mentally ticking off what I needed while I walked in. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, shining down on the jam-packed shelves. The air smelled like cheap plastic and industrial cleaner. Some generic pop song played from the ceiling speakers, mixed with the steady beeping of the barcode scanner up front. I needed toilet paper, detergent, and maybe some snack packs. So I headed straight to the personal care aisle. That's when it happened. This dude suddenly rushed past me, looked to be in his 40s, gray hair all wild. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt and ripped jeans. He was speed walking, cart loaded to the brim, stuff piled high, barely hanging on. Then out of nowhere, he slammed to a stop in front of this lady looking at shampoo. "Can you pay for me? I really need this," he rasped, voice rough like sandpaper. The woman blinked, shook her head, and stepped back quick. He didn't miss a beat, swung around to an old guy near the cough meds. "Can you cover me? It's just $40. The old dude just shook his head and hightailed it down the aisle. I dipped my head, tried to disappear, prayed he wouldn't see me. But no such luck. "Hey, you!" He was already marching over, wheels clattering. "Can you pay for me? I swear I'll pay you back." His eyes were bloodshot, and he had that faint booze stink on him. I shook my head. "Sorry, man. I can't." His face twisted, went from begging to pissed in a blink. Eyes wide, jaw clenched. "It's just $40 he barked, voice getting louder. "I don't have much money either," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I nudged my cart away. But he stepped right in front of me, then, out of nowhere, flipped his cart over. Everything went flying. Loud crash. Mouthwash bottle rolled straight to my feet. Packs of gum scattered everywhere. "What the hell is your problem?" he yelled, voice booming through the store. I flinched. My heart was hammering. People were staring now, everyone frozen. I tried to move past him, get out of the aisle, but he blocked me again. "What's your problem, huh?" he said again, face red. $40. What's your damn problem?" "Sorry, I gotta go," I said, backing away. My voice was shaky, my throat tight, but he kept coming, heavy footsteps pounding behind me. "What's your problem, huh?" What's your problem? His voice got louder each time, repeating like a broken record. I picked up the pace, pushing the cart faster, wheels squeaking. Hey! Another voice rang out, a guy from the store, an employee walking toward us. What's your problem? The man froze, spun toward the clerk. I was just asking her. That's it. You're disturbing other customers, the employee said, firm. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I didn't do anything. I just needed help. What's so wrong about that? The guy threw his hands up, trying to explain like he was the victim. I stopped at the end of the aisle, breathing hard. My palms were sweaty, heart pounding. You need to leave, now, or I'm calling the cops, the clerk said again, his tone sharper. The man went quiet, still staring at me. Then he gave a slow nod. Okay, I'll go. But just before he turned to leave, he crouched down. For a second, I thought he was going to pick up the stuff he'd thrown. Instead, he peeled off his ragged brown slippers, then yanked off his filthy white socks. What's your problem? He screamed one last time and hurled the slippers and socks straight at me. I jumped to the side. They slammed into the shelf behind me, knocking down a whole row of shampoo bottles. The sweaty socks landed right next to my cartwheel, and the stench hit me a second later. He walked barefoot toward the exit, leaving wet, grimy footprints on the tile as he went. The store clerk just shook his head and started picking up the mess. You all right? He asked. Guys like that show up from time to time, usually high on something, lose control, start hassling people. I gave a small nod. Thanks for stepping in. I was still rattled. I wrapped up my shopping as fast as I could. At checkout, I kept glancing toward the entrance, paranoid he might be out there waiting. But the parking lot was clear. I got in my car and slammed the door shut, locking it right away. Even on the drive home, I could still hear it echoing in my head. What's your problem? To him, the problem was simple. I didn't help. I didn't give him what he wanted. That was hands down the wildest trip to Dollar Tree I've ever had. And yeah, there's no way I'm forgetting it. I never thought a regular night shift would turn into a life or death escape. I'm Cassie, and I was 22 at the time, working part-time at a Dollar Tree store on East Main Street. I usually worked the evening shift because the pay was better, and I worked with Amanda. She was 2 years older than me with platinum blonde hair. Amanda was pretty private. She rarely talked about her family, only occasionally mentioning that she had to be independent from an early age. That particular shift, I remember it was around mid-August. I was doing inventory in the home goods section, while Amanda was tidying up the cash register. When the door chime rang, a man walked in. My immediate impression was how incredibly tall he was. He walked straight to the back of the store, turning left into the toy aisle. I assumed he was looking to buy something, so I didn't pay much more attention. A little later, I finished my task and headed towards the front counter. Where did that customer go? I asked. Amanda looked up, confused. Which customer? When I described the man in the black leather jacket, Amanda looked up from the register, bewildered. I'm sorry. I didn't notice anyone come in. Just then, a rustling sound came from the aisles. We looked in that direction, then at each other, understanding that the customer was still inside. Browse. We finished our end-of-day tasks while waiting for him. Amanda started counting the cash in the register following the closing procedure, and I went to rearrange items that customers had moved. At 9 p.m., the store was supposed to close. We hadn't heard any more sounds from the aisles. Not sure if the customer was still inside, we decided to check. But strangely, he was nowhere to be found. Maybe he left when we were busy, Amanda said. This was a bit odd, but not impossible. Perhaps he had slipped out quietly while we were focused on our work. We decided to complete the closing procedure. I continued turning off lights in the remaining sections while Amanda finished counting the money. The store was now only lit by emergency lights and the lights at the checkout counter. As I was in the back of the store, a strange noise came from the direction of the storage room. I stood about 10 yards from the storage room. Amanda, I called out, but there was no answer. I waited a few more seconds, but still silence. Thinking it was a mouse or something falling, I walked towards the main area of the store. When I reached the counter, Amanda wasn't there. The chair she had just been sitting in was still warm, and her purse and car keys were still in the drawer. I was a little confused, so I called out loudly, "Amanda, where are you?" My voice echoed in the quiet space. I walked around the store, slowly heading towards the back storage room. As I walked, I called out Amanda's name a few more times, but still no answer. Just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, and a message from Amanda appeared on the screen. "Get out of the store now." I froze, incredibly confused. The phone vibrated again. A second message from Amanda. "He went into the back room and tried to attack me. I ran, but he's still in there." My body went numb. All the pieces started clicking into place in my head. That tall man hadn't left the store at all. He had been hiding somewhere, waiting for the right moment when the store was empty and dark. I slowly backed towards the main door, each step feeling like it was weighted with lead, my eyes still fixed on the dark hallway leading to the back. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. Just as I turned to bolt, a loud noise erupted from the back. I spun around, and a tall, dark figure lunged forward. In the flickering fluorescent light, what he held in his hand became clear. A large knife. There was something dark on the blade. I turned and sprinted towards the main door with all my strength. He lunged after me at terrifying speed. My reflection showed him swinging the knife like a weapon of death. In the very next second, the blade grazed my left arm, tearing my shirt and leaving a deep, long cut. A searing pain erupted, and warm blood flowed down. But the pain only made me run faster. I shoved the door open and burst outside. Immediately I turned back and locked the door. From inside, violent pounding on the door echoed, accompanied by threatening snarls like a caged beast. I pulled out my phone with a blood-soaked hand, dialing 911. Unexpectedly, before I could even make the call, the police arrived along with an ambulance, sirens blaring. My wound was quickly bandaged. I pointed at the store and recounted everything to the officers, my voice broken with shock. They surrounded the store, and it wasn't long before they let him out, his hands cuffed tightly behind his back. Once he was in the police car, I urgently asked the officers about Amanda, my coworker. She texted me a warning and then disappeared. "Is she hurt?" A middle-aged officer looked at me. "We found her about 20 minutes ago. She had collapsed by the roadside, probably right after she made the call to us. She'd lost blood and has been taken to the hospital." A wave of relief washed over me. Amanda was safe, and thanks to her quick thinking, the police had arrived in time. The next day, once Amanda was conscious and stable, I visited her at the hospital. I asked Amanda about what happened in the storage room. She was silent for a long time, then sighed. It was my brother. Michael. Shock was clear on my face when I heard this. Her brother? The one she had never mentioned? Michael abused me since I was little, both physically and mentally. A few years ago, I reported everything to the police. Michael went to jail. Amanda turned her face to look out the hospital window, her voice slightly choked. "He just got out of prison last week. No one in the family wants to help him financially or with a place to stay. He blames me, saying I ruined his life." Amanda closed her eyes, as if trying to push away horrifying images. I tried to keep my past a secret, start a new life. But he still found me. I hugged Amanda tightly, trying not to cry with her. 2 weeks later, Amanda returned to work, her arm still bandaged. We still worked late shifts together, but now with at least one more coworker, and management had installed more security cameras and an alarm system. Michael was convicted of aggravated assault and using a dangerous weapon. Now, I've graduated and have a job in my field. Amanda and I are still good friends. I haven't been able to sleep for almost a month now. I can still feel the cold blade against my neck and his crazy eyes. I'm Stella, 26 years old. I'm a nurse living in New York. It was a Sunday evening in late August. I had just finished my shift at the hospital and was driving back to my small apartment in Queens. The next day was my day off, so I planned to have a relaxing evening with a few movies. There was a Dollar Tree on my way home, so I decided to stop by for some snacks. The store was deserted. I didn't see a single soul, not even a cashier. I thought they must be busy, so I walked along the aisles, quickly grabbing a few items, then headed to the checkout. But the cashier still hadn't appeared. I decided to wait a little longer. Just then, footsteps echoed from the back of the store. A man walked out. He was carrying a fairly large black plastic bag and wasn't wearing a uniform. When he saw me, he was clearly startled, his face suddenly tense. "Excuse me, do you work here? I need to pay for some things," I asked. He looked at me searchingly. I just work in the back in the stock room." I noticed his fingers gripping the plastic bag tightly, his knuckles white. "How long have you been here?" he asked in return. That question confused me. "Just a few minutes," I replied briefly. "Where's the cashier?" He hesitated for a second, then pointed to the back of the store. "He's in the back. I can take you there." This offer immediately put me on high alert. "No thanks." I stepped back. "I'll come back another time." His demeanor changed instantly. His face went from confused to annoyed, then angry. His small eyes stared at me with intense hostility. He mumbled something, but I couldn't hear it clearly. I turned and walked quickly towards the door. Just then, I heard the plastic bag hit the floor and the clinking of metal. I turned back and froze. He was holding a knife in his hand, a long blade stained with dark brown marks. "You're not going anywhere," he said, taking slow steps toward me. My heart pounded as if it would burst from my chest. My body was momentarily paralyzed before my survival instinct kicked in. I turned and ran towards the exit, but I wasn't fast enough. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, a strong force pulled me backward. He wrapped his arms tightly around me from behind, his left arm squeezing me, pinning my arms down, while his right hand brought the knife to my neck. "Shut up," he whispered in my ear. The cold blade pressed against my skin. "Why?" I gasped, trying not to move to prevent the blade from cutting deeper. "Because you're a witness." He squeezed me tighter. I felt the blade about to cut through my skin. At that moment, I truly accepted the worst possible outcome. Just then, gunshots echoed in the store. The explosions made my ears ring. I felt the man jerk violently. He slowly loosened his grip on me, lost his balance, and slowly fell to the floor. The knife clattered beside him. I stood there, trembling uncontrollably, unable to believe what had just happened. 2 police officers were standing at the entrance, one of their guns still pointed at the man on the floor. "Are you hurt?" A police officer ran over and asked me. I shook my head, but I couldn't speak a word. Paramedics rushed in, helped me sit down, and checked me. But before I could fully recover, I witnessed another haunting sight. 2 paramedics and a police officer were carefully bringing a body out from behind the checkout counter. The Dollar Tree blue shirt was stained red with blood, and the body had countless deep, jagged knife wounds. I immediately vomited on the spot. My body trembled so much that a nurse had to hold my shoulder tightly. I don't remember when I passed out. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, the soft white hospital lights glaring in my eyes. A young nurse was adjusting an IV drip beside me. I heard the steady beep-beep of the heart monitor. Only then was I sure that I was still alive. The doctor said I was in severe shock and had acute stress disorder after the traumatic event. They kept me for a few days to ensure I was stable. My mom immediately flew in from another state to be with me. She didn't ask many questions. She just held my hand tightly, and I kept crying, unable to say a word. During my hospital stay, I followed the case on the news and online. An article titled, "New York Police Shoot and Kill Murder Suspect at Queens Dollar Tree Store," reported that the man was Carlos, 41 years old. He was wanted in Ohio for armed violence and had escaped from a detention center a few weeks earlier. On the night of the incident, He broke into the store through the back door and murdered the cashier to steal money. The stockroom employee luckily wasn't discovered by him. He quietly left his hiding spot and called the police. When the police arrived, I was moments away from death. They were forced to open fire. If they had been a few seconds slower, I might have been the next victim. The following weeks became a real nightmare. I couldn't sleep. I kept waking up with nightmares of the cold blade against my neck and his crazy eyes. I've been seeing a therapist and trying every day to overcome this trauma. I cherish and am grateful for life because, fortunately, I'm still alive. My name's Judith. Last Friday night after work, I stopped by the Dollar Tree to grab a birthday card for my daughter. She was turning 7 the next day, and I'd been so swamped I nearly forgot. It was around 10 p.m. when I pulled into the parking lot. The place was pretty much deserted. It should be quick. I knew the store was about to close, so I hurried inside. The cashier, a young woman. She gave me a quick nod and kept stacking gum on the shelves. I wandered down the aisles, hunting for the card section. That's when I noticed a guy standing at the end of the aisle. He was dressed head to toe in black, hood pulled up over his face. I grabbed a pink birthday card with a cake on it. When I turned around, the guy was gone. Didn't think much of it. Just walked up to the register. I paid my $2 and left. As I stepped outside, I spotted him again. He was leaning against a green pickup truck parked way over in the corner. He is staring at me. I tried not to make a big deal out of it, unlocked my car, and slid into the driver's seat. In that moment, all I could think about was what to write in the card. I started the car, backed out of the space, glanced at the rearview mirror. The guy was gone. The drive home was the usual one. Quiet neighborhoods, old 2-story houses from the 60s, most of them dark at that hour. As I turned onto my street, I heard something coming from the back of the car. It sounded like something rolling across the floor. Probably just a water bottle or some random thing I'd tossed in the back seat earlier. But then it happened again. Clearer this time. That wasn't a water bottle. It sounded like movement. My heart kicked up. I checked the rearview mirror again, but it was too dark to make out anything in the back. I reached up and flipped on the interior light. A soft yellow glow lit up the back seat. Nothing. Looked totally normal. Maybe my brain was making stuff up. And then, another sound. This time, from the trunk. I froze, hands tightening around the steering wheel. Held my breath. Just listened. Maybe it was just the car hitting bumps in the road. But then I heard it again. My heart was pounding so hard. I swallowed and kept driving, trying to stay cool. Then came another sound. My hands started to shake. There was someone in my trunk. That guy in the black hoodie flashed through my mind, the one from the Dollar Tree lot. Could it be him? If he knocked the back seat down, he could get to me. Easy. What the hell was I supposed to do? Keep driving like everything was fine? Call the cops? But my phone was in my purse, sitting in the back seat. I didn't dare reach for it. Just keep breathing. Think. Then the sound from the trunk came again. Louder this time. Someone shifting, moving around. And then I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of metal hitting metal. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed on the brakes. The car jerked to a stop right in the middle of the street. Thank God there wasn't any traffic at that hour. I killed the engine, flung the door open, and jumped out. Took off like a shot. Didn't even dare look back. My heels were clicking like crazy on the sidewalk as I ran. I spotted a house with a light on and bolted straight for it. Please, somebody help me. Open the door. A minute later, the door creaked open. There's someone in my car, in the trunk. Please call the cops. The guy who answered looked me over, dead serious. You sure? I heard noises from the trunk, and there's this man. He's been following me since the Dollar Tree. Please, just call the police. He gave me a nod, grabbed his phone and dialed. Where's your car? He asked while dialing. I pointed down the street. Over there, the gray one. We both looked. My car was still sitting in the middle of the road, driver's door hanging wide open, but there was no one around. The cops showed up about 10 minutes later. I told them everything. One of the officers jotted notes in his little notebook, while the other headed over to check my car with a flashlight. Did you see the guy's face? Number. He kept his hood down the whole time. The officer circled the car, checked under it, then walked to the back and popped the trunk. He called us over. Inside the trunk there were footprints, big ones, pressed deep into the gray carpet. Definitely a man's. Someone had definitely been in your trunk, those footprints prove it. My head started spinning. My legs felt like jello. If I hadn't slammed on the brakes and jumped out, he could have waited me out. Or worse. We'll check the area. You want us to take you home? Yeah, please. They put me in the back of the patrol car, and another officer drove behind in mine. From now on, check your car before you get in. That guy knew your car. The officers gave me a few warnings, then took off. After they left, I went straight to my daughter's room and checked in on her. Then I walked back to the living room and sank into the couch, hugging a pillow to my chest. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, that man in the black hoodie, just standing there in the parking lot, watching me, and I knew exactly what he wanted. A woman, alone, late at night. He'd been watching me from the store, just waiting for the right moment to slip into my car. If I'd driven all the way home and parked in the garage where no one could see us, he would have gotten out and done whatever he wanted. I've got security cameras now, all over the house, and every time I get in my car, I check the back seat. I check the trunk too. Every single time. At red lights, I check the rear view, and when I hear a weird noise behind the car, my heart starts pounding, just like it did that night, because I know he's still out there, somewhere, waiting for his next victim. Some decisions in life, when I look back on them, still make me shiver. The decision to refuse a ride to a strange woman that night probably saved my life. I'm Katie, 26 years old, living alone in Albany, New York. It was an evening after my shift, and I stopped at Dollar Tree to buy a few essentials. Just as I stepped out of my car, a voice behind me startled me. "Excuse me, could you give me a ride?" I turned around and saw a woman, about 30 years old, with disheveled hair and a baggy shirt. She stared at me, her hands clasped in front of her chest. I froze for a few seconds, recalling her very strained voice and seeing her fingers slightly trembling. "Sorry, I can't," I replied briefly, turning and walking away immediately, but I couldn't help feeling a little uneasy as I entered the store. I went inside Dollar Tree and started picking out what I needed. As I was standing by the food aisle, I felt someone approach. Turning around, I saw the same woman from earlier. She had followed me inside. This made me feel uncomfortable. "I really need a ride." This time her voice was more urgent, almost pleading. When I looked directly at her face, the unease in my stomach began to turn into genuine worry. Her eyes were unusually wide. Her face, though seemingly normal, had clenched jaw muscles, as if she was trying to suppress something. She kept darting her eyes back and forth, not focusing on any single point. My gut told me something was very wrong with this person. "I'm sorry, but I can't help you," I said, then moved to another aisle, hoping she would understand and leave me alone. She didn't follow me anymore. I breathed a sigh of relief, trying to shop quickly, pay, and leave the store as soon as possible. I opened my car trunk to put my shopping bags away when I heard footsteps behind me. I froze, and my heart started pounding faster. "Please." I turned around. She was very close now. Her face was completely different from the previous 2 times. Her eyes were wide and glaring as if they wanted to burn through me, and blue veins prominently bulged on her forehead and neck. Her hands trembled violently and clenched into fists, her knuckles white. Her breathing was rapid and irregular. At this point, I was absolutely sure she was not normal. The confusion in my mind now became real fear I needed to get out of there immediately. I said I can't. If you need help, I can call the police for you. I tried to keep my voice calm. Her reaction shocked me. Her face suddenly contorted, and her mouth opened wide as she shrieked a string of obscenities. Then she started punching her own head, her fingernails clawing at her cheeks, leaving red marks. You don't understand. I need to go home. I need to go home right now. I backed away, my heart thumping. Even though I felt guilty for not helping someone in distress, my instinct told me this was not the time to be kind. I quickly opened my car door and jumped inside, my hands trembling as I fumbled the key into the ignition. A thud startled me. She was trying to open the back door, yanking hard on the handle. "Open the door! Open the door now!" I hit the lock button. Through the rearview mirror, I saw her pick up a large rock from a nearby flower bed. The sound of the rock hitting the car's body was very loud. I didn't dare look back. I just quickly started the car and drove away. Once I was on the main road, I finally dared to look back in the mirror. She was still standing in the middle of the parking lot, rock still in hand, watching my car disappear into the night. As soon as I got home, I called the police to report what had just happened. They took down my statement and sent someone to Dollar Tree to investigate. 2 days later, the police called me back to update me on the investigation. The woman, named Lisa, had been arrested at another grocery store in the area on charges of property damage and assault. She was a severe addict with no fixed address. The police said she had a history of violence when denied help. "You did the right thing by not giving her a ride. In that state, she could have done anything," the officer said. Hearing these words, I truly realized how close I had come to danger. If I had decided to be kind and given her a ride, what could have happened then? She could have attacked me, stolen my car, or even worse. I will never forget the lesson of trusting my gut. Sometimes refusing to help isn't cruel, it's self-preservation. People called me a hero after that incident. But how could they know that in those 15 terrifying minutes, I was so scared I almost gave up? I'm Cad, 19 years old. I've always been proud of my physique. I'm almost 6.4 feet tall with solid muscles, the result of regular workouts. I had been working at a Dollar Tree in Kalamazoo, Michigan, for 5 weeks when it happened. That evening, the store was empty. Nora was sitting at the checkout counter, scrolling on her phone. Wade was stocking shelves in the household goods section. I was checking inventory in the back room. The bell on the door rang. I looked up and saw a man walk in. He was taller than me, maybe almost 7 feet. He wore a thick sweatshirt with the hood pulled up, covering half his face, and faded jeans. The first thing I noticed was how he moved. Each step was stiff, like a broken robot. He stopped in the middle of an aisle, his head swiveling, observing everything. His imposing size made me a little uneasy. I moved toward the shelves, pretending to organize products so I could keep an eye on him. He went to the food section. Then everything happened very fast. A terrible crash. He had pushed over an entire rack of candy, sending it spilling all over the floor. "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, walking closer. He turned to look at me but didn't say anything. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun. My mind was reeling, and I couldn't react. And then he fired. I looked down and saw bright red blood soaking through my shirt. The pain was excruciating. "Nora, run!" I screamed. She crawled and ran toward the back door. Wade yelled from a corner of the store, "Gun! Gun!" The man turned his gun toward Wade. The gun fired again. Wade fell, grabbing his leg in pain, blood gushing out. I dove behind the checkout counter, my left arm numb. The man fired shot after shot into the shelves. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Then, after a few seconds, everything went silent. Suddenly, I heard heavy breathing. He had jumped over the counter. I lunged at him, grabbing his leg and pulling hard. He fell, and the gun slid away. We both wrestled to get the gun. He was incredibly strong. His arms were like iron clamps around my neck. I fumbled around and found the gun. He froze, his grip loosening. The gun clicked, but no bullet was fired. Enraged, he punched me square in the jaw. My mouth filled with the taste of blood, and I felt extremely dizzy. He pinned me to the floor with his full weight, his hands squeezing my throat. I was just inches from him, and I could clearly see every wrinkle on his haunting face. My vision was fading. I felt like I was slowly sinking into a dark pool, unable to escape. Suddenly, Wade rammed the attacker's side. He rolled to one side, his hands releasing my neck. I gasped for air. We used all our strength to pin him to the floor. A few minutes later, police sirens blared outside. They stormed into the store, fully equipped, and quickly handcuffed the attacker. The strange thing was, he didn't resist at all. He just lay there with an empty look in his eyes, as if none of what had just happened meant anything to him. An ambulance took Wade and me to the hospital. The bullet had shattered a bone in my left arm, requiring immediate surgery. The press later called me a hero, but I didn't think of myself that way. I just felt lucky to be alive. Our attacker had a history of severe mental illness. He was sentenced to life without parole for attempted murder and armed assault. Nora went back to work at the store, but she no longer scrolled on her phone. She was always on alert with every customer, her eyes constantly scanning the area. Wade still limped slightly from his injury, but he told me it was a sign of courage, a memory of the night we saved each other's lives. I'm slowly recovering and working out to regain my muscle mass. I realized something important. The physical strength I was so proud of wasn't just for showing off or impressing people. It was also to protect myself and others, to stand up against injustice and cruelty. And I started thinking about becoming a police officer. That colorful toy truck almost killed me. I'm Mike, 32 years old. 3 months ago, I worked as a quality control inspector at a Dollar Tree distribution center in Laredo, Texas. My job was to inspect goods and make sure they met the standards before they went on the shelves. I had been doing this for 5 years and had never encountered any serious problems. I was checking a new shipment of toys. The items were small, brightly colored plastic trucks. I picked one up and turned it over to look at the label. Below the regular English text, there was a passage in another language. I was drawn to the bold red characters, which were different from the rest of the label. I looked around, making sure no one was watching, and secretly put the toy truck in my jacket pocket. When I got home, I quickly opened a translation app. The results shocked me. Warning: contains toxic substances dangerous to children. I read it 3 times. This toy was not supposed to be sold in Dollar Tree stores across the United States. I didn't know what was happening with this latest shipment. At work, I noticed Rick, my direct supervisor, talking to a man in a black suit in the parking lot. I saw the strange man hand Rick an envelope. The sense of unease inside me grew. That evening, I scraped off a little paint from the toy truck to send it for testing. I told them I suspected there was a problem with my child's toy. The results came back 3 days later. The lead content was 10 times the allowable level. There were also cadmium and some other toxic chemicals. According to the report, long-term exposure could cause brain damage, affect a child's development, and even lead to cancer. That day, I decided to confront Rick. I put the toy truck on his desk, along with the test report. You need to see this. Rick read the report with a cold expression, then stood up and walked closer to me. Mike, you have a wife and a daughter, right? The little one is almost 8, isn't she? The way he mentioned my daughter's name made me clench my fists to stay calm. That wasn't a normal question. I stood up, grabbed the toy truck and the report, and took a step back. I'm going to the police. At this point, the last bit of a smile completely vanished from Rick's face. You're going to regret this. I ran back to my desk, packed up my things, and quit my job immediately. I drove home as it started to get dark. I thought about my wife and daughter, wondering if I should tell them what was happening. When I reached a downhill stretch of road, I gently pressed the brake, but the car showed no signs of slowing down. I pressed harder. The pedal went all the way down without any resistance. In a panic, I pulled the handbrake. I saw that it had no effect. The car was accelerating downhill. The taillights of the truck in front of me were getting closer. I quickly swerved hard to the right, and the car crossed into the oncoming lane and crashed straight into the median. The sound of the impact echoed in my head, and everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. 3 days had passed. My wife was sitting next to me, her eyes red. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive, but my spinal cord was damaged. I might never walk again. I was completely devastated. My body and mind were in a state of emptiness. Seeing my wife and daughter, I remembered Rick's inquiry. I was sure he was behind all of it, but there was nothing I could do. In my mind, I saw Rick's cold smile. I knew exactly who was behind all of this, but I chose to stay silent. I had already suffered so much pain and such a serious outcome. I didn't want my wife and daughter to suffer anymore. If I spoke up, Rick wouldn't necessarily get caught. He would find more horrible ways to take revenge on my family. Thinking this, I just nodded and thanked the police officer, telling him I didn't know who did it. I had to stay silent to protect the people I loved. Not long after, I convinced my wife to move away. I told her I wanted to start a new life, away from the painful memories of the accident. My wife agreed, and we moved to a small town in the north, hundreds of miles from our old home. 6 months later, I happened to catch a news report on TV. A journalist was reporting on the recall of thousands of toxic Dollar Tree toys. Images of small, colorful trucks appeared on the screen. The exact same toys I had discovered. The reporter said a large-scale investigation had been launched, and many people involved had been arrested and prosecuted. The camera panned over the list of arrested people, but I didn't see Rick Brown's name anywhere. I turned off the TV and looked out the window. My daughter was playing in the garden. My wife was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Our lives had returned to peace. I sat in my wheelchair, thinking about what had happened. But what about Rick? He was probably somewhere, continuing his dirty business, but one day he would have to pay for his choices. All I want now is to protect my little family.